All right, today we're looking at mastering. I do master a lot of records because it ends up being a price point thing for a lot of people. They spend so much money recording, mixing. If you have the money, I highly recommend hiring um, a mastering engineer for your project. If you can't, I'm going to show you some tips on how to do it. I'll show you a few different ways. I'll show you a way to do it just with Pro Tools plugins, and I'll show you how I do it. Um, I like where I'm at with my masters, but even still, if I have a budget to hire somebody, I will hire somebody to do it. The last West Meets West full length was mastered by Ed Brooks. Today we're going to look at the Eager Sales EP that was mastered by Rachel Fields. Both of them are out in Seattle. Sterling Sound is in New York City. There's some amazing mastering engineers. And just because I can show you how I do it doesn't mean it's not worth hiring them. They're fantastic engineers. So if you have the budget, please try it out for yourself. It's definitely worth it. And this is a pro mastered version. This is the version that is out, but I'm going to show you the mixes and maybe what I would do today to master it as well. So the very first thing you're going to do is import the audio to a session, and it'll probably all end up on four. If you imported these tracks, it would end up on four different tracks. And here, let's import these. So if you import these, let's see here. I don't have all these in one spot. I should. So you go one by one and find these. All right. And you would import them to a new track. All right. Yeah, that's fine. That's just because this file's in there already. And so they would all end up being on separate tracks. So let me simulate that for you. Let's just do 4 stereo tracks. And it would look something like this. Okay. Again, this is how I master. Everyone's going to do something a little bit different. So you have the tracks on 4 different tracks here. And hopefully you know from the artist what the order of the songs is. If you don't know the order, you have to find that out. I really don't like to guess on order of songs for artists. To me, that's an artistic thing. If they really, most times, I would say 90% of the time they know. But if not, you'll have to have that discussion. So these are all numbered in the right order. You can bring these up to a track. Now, here's the issue. I bring them up here, all to one track. I can delete these now. So that's like I imported them. Now I go to shuffle mode and I can just drag them over and it will lose all the space in between them. So that's the first part. Get them all on one track. And then we can already see that these are different levels here, these 4 songs. So we'll address that. But the very first thing I would do is listen to the whole record, the entire record through. I'm listening for clicks and pops. I'm listening for volume. I'm listening to mix decisions. So the very first thing I would do, so this is, how long is this? This is 17 minutes. I would listen to the whole thing without touching anything. Just listen to it, make notes. You can use a text edit file, or you can just have a pen and paper, make notes on the mixes. And because they're also paying you, if you're getting paid for mastering, or if you're mastering, someone's work, they want you to consider the mix too. So you can give mix feedback. And if something needs to go back and be fixed, you can adjust that too. So a lot of times when the very first thing I'll do is listen to the entire record, make notes, listen for clicks and pops, and then start to get an idea of how songs should go into each other. If there is something that I can't fix, like a weird fade or a click and pop or something I can't fix, I will talk with the producer or mix engineer and try to get that fixed. And usually they really appreciate the feedback. Sometimes they might say though, like, nope, that's it. That's the final mix and we're going to deal with it. I have mastered MP3s for people. I've mastered crazy, mono files just because it was the last thing they could find. So hopefully you're not doing that, but sometimes it happens. All right, so let's pretend we listened all the way through. Okay. So the first thing I'm hearing is they're different levels, a lot of them. So there's a couple ways I could do that. You could put these on separate tracks and use volume to adjust the differences between the songs. You could use clip gain. You could just lower this one. I don't like to add a lot of clip gain because if I add too much, it could screw us up later. But so I tend to try to cut some. This one's just really quiet. Okay, so that's in a ballpark for now. I'm gonna go through this a little quicker than I normally would. So we have that, and actually these are different enough that I would maybe put these on 4 different tracks. But for now, we'll just focus on one song here. So a couple of things we need to look at. You got the meters here. Obviously, we're hoping the mix is coming in at a reasonable level. So many mixes come in and they're already way too loud. And if it's already way too loud, there's nothing we can really do. We could turn it down and run it through some more processing. But if it's already gone through a limiter, there's not much I can do. And I cannot tell you how many times people send me things that have already been limited. And it's a little, your hands are tied if it's already been heavily limited. So we have this meter and we also have insight here. And these are both really great for showing us levels. So let's look at the level of this. And if you don't have these, that's okay. I'll show you another way. Matter of fact, I'll show you now. So we want to set this meter here. You can right click and make that, turn that into RMS. All right. So if you don't have Insight or Duro, you can use that. Okay, so this is coming in like minus 18. We wanted to hit at its loudest, like minus like 10, minus 9 loudness units. This is a whole nother topic, and there's amazing resources out there on this. But generally, this is measuring loudness, and these are both. This is an old RMS meter, and this is a newer loudness unit. And there's actually a newer version of this plugin out as well. This is showing us RMS as well. So these are essentially showing us similar things. And it's showing us overall volume, not peak over. It's showing us overall volume. All right. So the very first thing you could do, and the easiest thing you could do, is literally just, and I wouldn't recommend this, but if you're in a rush and you don't want to completely ruin something, you can just open up Maxim and bring your ceiling down. I like to give it a lot of headroom, minus 1. Some people only do like minus 0.3, but it gives us a whole dB of headroom. You have to actually give it some kind of ceiling, otherwise it's not going to keep the overs from happening. So now we turn down the threshold, and you'll hear it get louder. so you see that's all I had to do to bring it up to pretty much a mastered level. Let's bring in a reference here just to show us here. Sure. Okay. Okay, so what I like to do is bring in a reference. That's something that's been mastered by someone professional, and that sounds really good, and that it sounds. Also, something in the genre of what you're working on. So, if this were a hip hop song, I have certain hip hop references I would bring in and compare it to that. You always want to compare it because that's part of it. You want to compare your track to the other ones. So I was gonna import some songs, and then I realized I don't own the rights to those songs. So I'm importing a Wess Meets West song because I do own the rights to that. And this was mastered by Ed Brooks. So let's hear where this is at. I'm gonna solo this. Okay, so you see we're getting -9, a little over -9, and yeah. Now this is not the loudest master, but to me it's really good. There's a lot of headroom. It gives you some space. I bet it gets louder here. Let's see. Yeah, so -8. And we also, when we were making this record, we opted for it to be more dynamic than loud. We were totally okay with, because the louder something is, the less dynamic you're going to be able to make it. So for Wess Meets West, we care a lot about the dynamics. But if it's an EDM song or something where there's not as many dynamics and you want it to be as loud as possible, you can just shoot for a higher goal in your meter. And so again, if you're doing hip hop or you're doing rock or you're doing whatever you're doing, bring in a reference. Try to have it be a WAV file, and just measure its volume and compare it. So now let's hear our master versus this. So we're already like in a competitive. It's pretty good as far as volume. Let's lose this Maxim thing. See what that sounds like. So without Maxim, it's not loud enough. Without Maxim, it's not loud enough. All right, you hear that? So without your limiter, it wasn't getting to be loud enough. Now you might notice I'm hitting solo and it's turning off my other solos. That's what I do when I do mastering. So if you ever came into the studio here, go to solo mode and you want to have canceled previous solo. You want this one, as opposed to latching, which will latch the solos. So you want to make sure that is turned on. So if you ever go into the studio and you can't solo more than one thing, I probably was mastering in there. So, I mean, if you have Maxim, that's all you need. I'm not going to lie to you and say I use this. I don't use this at all. But you can use it and it will get you where you need to be volume-wise. We just saw that. And you can push it even harder if you want. Let's see. Now see how distorted and kind of crappy it starts to sound when you push it too hard. Now it's getting really loud. Getting really loud, but it sounds terrible. So that's why we exist. That's why there's a mastering process, because you want to be able to do that process clean and nicely. quiet. Let's see if we can get it up a little bit more. Just move the loudest part over because that's what we care about. So it's still too quiet, right? Compared to that. Let's go all the way to -6. Let's see what that does. Okay, yeah, it's starting to get loud enough. And if this is what you have, there's nothing wrong with this. If you can make this work, boom, you're done. Let's, for fun, just compare it to see where it's at with this one. Okay, so you should be asking yourself, you know, we paid, or I paid, this is eager sales, so I paid for this to be mastered. And those are not totally different. I definitely hear some differences that I think I prefer in the professional master, but if you look at it just from a pure volume point of view and the cost of what it costs, we can get there on our own. So again, I'm not telling you not to hire a master and engineer. I'm telling you that if you have to do it yourself, you can totally do it here. All right, so that's Maxim. And again, I don't use this at all. Let's, for fun here, and we have this in all the studios. We have Ozone by Isotope, and they have some amazing resources on their website. This is on my other iLock, so I have to see if this will work without it. See, that's what happens when you play both these at the same time. Let's listen to this one. All right, so I put Ozone on the unmastered. So let's do this. Let's play it. And it has this master assistant. I'm just curious. Let's see what it does. We'll go for CD. We'll go for, we're going to cancel that. We'll go for master, CD, high intensity. So this will go through and do its thing. All right, and again, this is on my other iLock, which is kind of annoying right now, but it's on the other computer recording this audio. Okay, so when you do the Master Assistant, it will give you some suggestions on EQ and dynamics. Wow, usually there's a couple more EQ things that it must like the mix. Thanks, Ozone. It must like the mix. And then it'll offer you some dynamic options and some dynamic EQ. So it is seeing some areas here that it wants to mess with. It wants to clean up these areas. And then lastly, it has this limiter, which the limiter should always be last, by the way. All right, and now to be a jerk, let's compare the Ozone to... Not to be a jerk, but for fun, let's look at Ozone versus the Pro Master here. Okay, so there's a couple things going on here. It's louder. Ozone is already louder than the Pro Master. I think it's a little too crunchy. I think it's a little too loud. But if you like it, then that's totally up to you. Whatever you like better artistically is works. But if we turn down this threshold a little bit, see, it came in at 0.3 as its reference. We also want to turn on True Peak because that's why it's clipping. that's a whole nother topic, but just turn on True Peak. And then there's some other different limiter options here. Let's hear this. So there you go. Now there's the professional master versus ozone, and again, like it will work for you. So don't let this get in the way. Like you should be putting out music and getting it mastered in whatever way you can afford and whatever way you can do. So if you don't have any money or time or don't want anyone else to do it, you can come into the studios here at Mercy and open up Ozone and boom, you're good. As you saw, you can't just, the master assistant is cool, but you can't just open that up and be done. You want to tweak it from there. And honestly, what I would do is just, if your mix is exactly where you want, I would come in here and turn on True Peak, put the ceiling at 0.3 or even all the way at 1.0 like I recommended, and you could find the sweet spot for your volume. And again, if you don't have these meters, there's meters here in Ozone. So there you go. Again, if you don't have anything to master it, come in here, open up Ozone, bring up this maximizer, and I think this is going to do a nicer job than Maxim. Sorry, Maxim. There's a lot of great things about those plugins, but I think this one does it a hair better. And let's see, there's other options here. There's the L2, old school. This has been around for a while. Again, let's bring the ceiling down to at least 0.3. And we're lowering the threshold till it's about, let's say, -9. Now it's a trade-off, and I think this sounds more distorted than the Ozone Maxim. So it's a trade-off. You have to figure out which one sounds best to you. Some people really like how these waves limiters sound. Let's see, there's other waves limiters here. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I really like the Fab Filter one. We'll look at that in a second. There's the L16, L316, similar. Bring down the threshold. So you're getting that the limiter is not that's not a part that's crazy. Now, you got to A/B like every limiter out there. You have to figure out which one. I wish there was even a limiter category here. You have to figure out which limiter you like. There's the L1. That's the newer version. That's the older version. That, as far as the way it looks. Maybe I'm just going down a path of craziness, but I'm trying to just give you what's all going through my head here. So in recent times, I really like the Ozone, I really like Fab Filter, and I really like this soft tube limiter. Again, True Peak is good. Turn this up. I'll turn on some oversampling here. Cool. So that's doing what it likes. By the way, it's usually standard to be mastering at 96, but you can do it at 48 if you like. There's a great video by Fab Filter actually talking about sample rates. I won't get into all of that, but working at least 48 is a good measure. And then we'll talk about how to export everything in a minute. But I try to do everything at 96 if you can. If your computer can handle. Again, if you can't, just to get it done, do it at 48. I have made many records at 44.1, and you know, it's all about getting it done. No one asks. I mean, they might ask, but no one. They care about the music. They care about the songs. All right. So we got Fab Filter, which is another one that's really good. You saw it's easy to dial in, really easy to dial in. It's got a meter. I think this is like $150 or something. This plugin, you get a student discount. And yeah, it sounds really great. I won't get into dither too much. Dither adds noise and it helps with the quantization error. You're going to study all about that. I actually tend to leave it off these days, and that might be a source of debate amongst people, and that's fine. I just don't find that I need it anymore in 2020. 10 years ago, maybe. I don't think I need it. I'm using the Avid converters. It's not a huge problem for me. Again, research that more yourself. Okay, and then Softtube here has the and this is my favorite limiter. Right now, it could change. I'm sure it could change tomorrow. And this one's expensive. I won't lie to you. This is a couple $100. But we do have it in all the studios here. And I really like the limiter. And so we have to lower the ceiling here. And this is based off the real piece of hardware here, which is nice. So you want to lower the ceiling here. Again, you could do, well, I have a preset here. You could go to -1. Again, that might be too much for some people, but I like having a ton of headroom for conversion. And then this is your limiter gain, so how much gain you want to apply. So you notice I'm looping the loudest parts of the song for obvious reasons. Those are the parts that need to be loudest. So we can still come up on this. All right, so that's pushing it pretty hot there. You see how loud it gets. And for fun, let's compare that back to this one. And yeah, they sound different, don't they? But that's the whole point. And so just to recap here, let's do this. Let's create. So this is going to be the. Why are these plugins? Yeah, this is being funny. Okay, we don't need that. All right, so that's going to be. Let's do this. We'll call this the Wess. All right, we'll call this the Fab Filter. My cat in the background. Let's change this to the Fab Parallel 2. And let's just dial that in real quick. Just tells us to go. Cool, so just dialing that in. We'll call, let's see, what else? Oh, the waves. Let's just do the, let's do the L. 2016. Lower the ceiling. Just tells us to go. Okay, and then let's look at Maxim here. Maybe Maxim's like the best, and we don't. I'm just a jerk, maybe. Let's see. Okay. Okay, and let's just keep these blank. Original, no plugins. And that's something I do in all my mastering sessions too. Is I keep the originals on a track, so I can always reference them. So I can always go back and go, oh, what did the mix sound like? And are we actually making it better? Okay. And so real quick, let's just do this. So now we have 4 different limiters here. Okay. So here's Maxim again. Just tells us to waves. Pro out, probably turn that up a little bit. So there's, whatever the Pro Mastering engineer used, which is a lot of analog hardware, and there's 4 different plugin options here, ranging probably in cost from cheapest to most expensive. So you'll realize that they're pretty close. I mean, there's ones in here I like better. There's ones I like worse. You should check it out. Oh, you know what we need? We should do this again. We need ozone here. I do really like ozone. Can be really cool. But instead of I'm not going to use their mix assistant. I'm just going to use their limiter here, True Peak. Go that one. There you go. There's 5 different plugins that I have, and then there's the mix, and then there's the master we ended up with. All pretty different. And I can't sit here and tell you which one is the best because it's an artistic decision. So you have to decide which one you like. I did say, just for clarity, I do like this one. I've been using this limiter. It is the newest. There is an Ozone 9 out that I haven't tried yet. I plan on getting that in here for the studios as soon as possible. So I'm exploring limiters whenever they come out. I explore new limiters and I try it and I push them to their limit, and pun intended. And I see which one I like. But again, if you have to finish a record from home today and you need to use Maxim, boom, there you go. And the biggest, most important thing is just keep your ceiling down. Because if you don't keep your ceiling down, you're gonna clip your master. I'll show you what that looks like. Boom, clipped right away. And if you're clipping your master, you're gonna have weird sounds when you convert it to other MP3 and other files and all that. Now, when we're looking at level here, let's get rid of these. When we're looking at level. We are talking about CD level. We're talking about CD, and we're actually, as the time of this recording, as far as I know, I believe Bandcamp and SoundCloud still do not do loudness normalization, but Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, Tidal, all the major streaming services now do loudness normalization. So what that means is, if I were to play them, submit this regular unmastered version, they would raise this. Actually, that's perfect for streaming level. Most streaming levels like -14, -16. Most people that I know don't go and make different streaming masters for each service. It would just kind of be over the top in my book. And I actually still believe that the CD master will work for Spotify and for Tidal and everything, but we have to be aware that they're actually turning it down. So if you have something this loud, this is hitting like -8. They're turning this down to -14 on Spotify and on YouTube and Apple and Tidal. They're actually turning it down to match other tracks. So you're not doing yourself any favors by slamming the dynamic range. For organizational purposes, and for it to sound exactly, for it to be the same master, I like to use the CD master. I will do a streaming master when people ask for it. It's no problem. There is vinyl mastering too. It's a whole nother topic. In general, just less limiting for all that is what you want. So if you want to do a streaming master, you can. If you're doing a streaming master, just shoot for -14. All right. And if you're shooting for -14, you can come way down with the limiter gain. Boom. We're already there, right? Personally, if tomorrow the audio gods said, yes, nothing can go over -14 for volume, I would be so happy. Mixes sound so much better when they're not when they're not slammed. Some music does sound better when it's just all the dynamics are taken out of it, but you can do that and then still lower, not have it be, -6 or 4. Some records are -4 dB LUFS, or -6, and that's a little bit. They don't sound great. Most of your favorite records are probably coming in somewhere between -9 and 6. So I'm saying shoot for -9 is going to give you plenty of loudness. If you want to do a streaming master, shoot for -14. Okay. This is fun, right? All right. So now we're doing this. All right. So now let's do this. So that's the couple different limiters. We got the Pro Master here. We have a reference. Let me bring in my template. I'm going to import data here. I'm going to go to my hard drive. I'm going to go here, template. This is that. And I have, I'm going to just make 2 new tracks here. Okay. Now, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is duplicate the originals. I'm going to call this Sam for my master. And I'm going to move over these plugins here. Okay. Now, these are like alt plugins that I sometimes use in mastering. You'll see the Fab Filter limiter, which I still like. Clariphonic EQ, which is really nice. I use the Shadow Hills a lot in mastering too. Matter of fact, I'll bring it over. Sometimes the SSL is just exactly what you need. Sometimes the Curve Bender, and sometimes the S1 for some width. Let's bring, yeah. Well, I'll leave them here actually, just inactive. Okay, and I certainly don't just, what do we do? Oh, that's right, we got 2 masters here, so we can get rid of this one. I certainly don't just import this and play it and boom. I turn them all off. Again, this is after listening to the whole record. Once I listen to the whole record, then I will actually listen to the songs and how they go into each other. So let's look at that. So the song ends. Okay. So, you know, I don't have a huge issue with that, but what I would do here is play around with the spacing on it. So I might do this. So if I wanted to start that early, I could have done that. This is the spacing we ended up with on the final record. But that's a creative part of mastering. You don't want a song to, let's see, do you want it to start right here? Let's see. Maybe you want that, and you could make a fade here, and you can make that work. I mean, that actually kind of sounds cool to me now. And then you want to make sure this is faded too. Okay, come on. Wow. Oh, he's Pro Tools. Okay. So you could do that. Let's pretend that we like that. And then I would go over here to the next song. Again, this is after listening to all the songs. I know the record now. And I know how they want to go into each other. Now, okay, so there's a lot of things going on there. Let's look at this. One, there's a lot of ambient stuff happening at the end of this track. Hear all that? It's really subtle. All right. So, maybe you want this to start this way. And again, if we're in shuffle mode, it's going to take the audio and just bring it with you when you do that. You can fade this out. Okay, you could try all that. So I do try to put a fade on every track. But watch this. What if we wanted to do this? What if we wanted track 2 to flow into track 3? I would duplicate these. And so let's do this actually. I'd actually get rid of all these plugins. I would make a bus for the mastering. I would call this. All right, and then I would move all this stuff over. So I made a bus. Okay. And this is something that Wess meets West does on like all of our records here. And unfortunately, we gotta just get rid of all these. This is like day 30 of quarantine. How's everyone living? I hope good. Oh, got a little email. I don't even know how that. All right, and then I would send that stuff through this mastering. Now, why do I have to do that? That's so you can. Let's do it this way. Let's mute the rest of this stuff. I muted the wrong one. Okay. So now what I could do, and now I have tracks and all that. So I would delete the tracks. I'm going to go back to slip mode here. Delete these tracks. All right. And now I could literally, it's so, it's kind of so simple once you do it. And then you decide where this track starts. Now, a couple things to realize when you do that. You have to decide where this track is going to start. So I would make a marker probably. Okay, that's song 3. So I would decide where that's starting. Now, in this case, I might suggest, you could start the track here, though the track ends the same way it starts. So that's kind of important. So let's say track 3 would start where this track starts. So what that means, it would still have a bit, when you play track 3 on the CD or Spotify, it would still have a bit of track 2 at its beginning. So you have to decide if you want that or not. But this is how you would do it. And then you could export the whole record, and I'll show you how that all works too. Just for fun, let's make this one do that too. Let's have this start early. So I don't love that. Let's try it here. kind of cool, but maybe a little less. You know, I think these two work better separated, but I just want to show you the idea behind it. And again, I would put fades and all this stuff. And I would have to decide where track 4 would start. So maybe like after these. So yeah, that'll work. Going at the end here. All right, and we would get rid of that noise. So all the tracks now have fades, the spacing we like on the songs. So now we have all that stuff, right? So we'll call it Sam 2 for track 2. And again, we have the originals here for reference. Just make that inactive. We're not going to need that for now. And so we have these going to this aux now. And there we go. Let's see what we can do here. So, you know, I have these all in 2 tracks, but another thing I would do is I mixed all these together, so I think they're all working pretty well as far as EQ together. But let's say you were mastering a compilation for your friends, and you wanted to do, you know, 10 songs from 10 different artists, 10 different mix engineers. If you're doing stuff that's that different, I would put them on 10 different tracks, and I would probably put different EQ and probably different compression, different limiting for each of the songs, and then have them all compare to each other and have different settings on probably every single plugin. But because these were all mixed together by one person, it's one artist, the idea is I'm kind of doing the final gluing of stuff together with these plugins. So I can do that with these, but if they sounded different enough, I would just go in there and change EQ. You could automate the EQ for songs, but don't just assume the same EQ and compression is going to work for every song. Now, I'm actually, because I mixed this, I know that I probably used most of these plugins on my 2-bus master in the session. So honestly, probably the only thing I would need to do is do limiting, and that's it. And the rest of these could be turned off. But for argument's sake, I wanted to show you what I might do to a master. So there's EQ. Now, you can get into linear phase and all that. It's probably another topic as well. I will say, you know, we can go to the Fat Filter 3 here to be a little bit more up to date. And I don't want to blow Fat Filter's spot, but I've had issues with their linear phase, actually. I've had issues with exporting it with linear phase. It added some time, actually, to the recording, so my spacing was not right. So in mastering, you want to be really, really, really careful to use things that you know and know how they work. I actually need to email Fab Filter about that. So, and hopefully by the time you're watching this, it's solved. But when I would export in linear phase mode, it would actually shift everything over a few samples, which isn't a huge deal. But when you go to break the songs for the final export, I don't want it to be a sample off from where I decided it to be. So we're getting into some craziness. But so for now, I'm just using regular natural phase or even the zero latency. But the linear phase for me had an issue right now. But usually you would actually want to use linear phase for mastering. That's a whole other kind of topic. All right, so we're listening, and I'm only going to EQ if I need it, only if there's problems. I'm not gonna EQ just to EQ. And to be honest, I was happy with this, so I would probably just leave this alone as some kind of spectrum analyzer for the whole thing. I might use a low shelf here. Yeah, it's already there. Over a filter. Sometimes filters ring a little too much when you use them in mastering. Again, it's okay. It's what you prefer, but I tend to prefer just a shelf. Around 20K, just to 20K now, for around 20 hertz, just to clean up any like sub lows, and only if you need it. You don't always need it, but sometimes I'll have that on. Speakers will try to reproduce things under 20 hertz, and sometimes you don't want them doing that. Okay, so we'll leave that alone. Phoenix is my tape machine. It's like a slate tape machine, or the Waves, or other brands. Different plugins make different tape machines, so it's just adding harmonic saturation. See how it just kind of like lifts it up, makes it feel louder, adds some coloration. That's what I'm going for with that. Anything that makes something feel louder without limiting or compressing is kind of cool. These are the general settings I have for that. It's my preset. And then I do love the Pultec. So automatically the Pultec adds gain, which is a little, it's kind of cheating because it does add gain, but it is, it's worth checking out. I think it adds beautiful width to pretty much everything you send through it. It also can give you this ability to shape the lows and highs, and it's kind of smiley face style EQ. So let's see what we can do here. I like 60. Obviously that's too much. I don't even think it needs it because it's just, I feel like the bass was in the right spot. But you could add a little low end to something there. Again, I'm mastering something I mixed, so that's a recipe for disaster, but it happens. If you try not to let that happen, try to have somebody else master it. But if you have to be the one to do it, then there you go. So this was already on. All these things were already on the 2-bus in my session. So I'm just showing you what I would do. Not all these, but some of them were. That's why even a little bit of this isn't working to me at all, because it's probably already was dialed in on the mix. Same thing with the high end here. That's working kind of nicely. I'll leave that. Cool. Again, this is mainly my 2-bus compressor. I like this, or I like the Shadow Hills. Let's check out this one first. This is a Magic Death Eye, which is an interesting kind of very new style. I'll do a medium attack. I put the sidechain filter in, and I usually use this second time. These are different attack and release times here. Use your ears. It's pretty cool. Let's check out the Shadow Hills here. This is actually 2 compressors. There's an optical compressor here, and then there's a discrete down here. For the sidechain. So hopefully you know what sidechain is, but it's cutting out the low end of the detector circuit. So it's the kick drum is not going to make it compress as much. I think this is at 60 or 90. I'd have to read the manual again. So see how I took it out and it got louder? It means my gain is probably not set right here. So out. Okay. So I need a little bit more makeup gain. That's compressing too much. For me. See, I'm doing like a dB at the most of the optical compressor. Now there's no attack and release times. It's based on the threshold. All right. Now let's bring in this discrete. I I usually can get away with a little bit more compression on the discrete channel, but it's still about a dB. If you're doing a ton of compression here, not saying it's not an option, but it's going to change the mix a bunch. And in mastering, I'm actually not trying to change the mix that much. I'm trying to get the mix to a reasonable level and do any final tweaking. For something I mixed, I would never do all this because I probably did it in the session. So I would probably just do limiting in the mastering session. Maybe some more de-essing. We'll get to that. But probably not. Usually, if I mixed it, I tried to take care of all those things. Though I say that, and then I don't even know what the ProMaster did. Like they EQ'd, they probably de-essed, they converted it, they probably compressed it. So again, everyone works a little differently. Sometimes I use the Fab Filter de-esser. Sometimes I'll use the Waves de-esser. I really like the Soothe plugin. We can check that out. The inflator, if you know me, I just love this thing. It just kind of adds more saturation. Now I know that this was used on the 2-bus already, so I'm going to just lessen the effect. Yeah, lessen that a little bit. This is a cool plugin. I'm going to take this off, but I'll show it to you. This is newer. I like this in parallel mode. It's a Leapwing parallel compressor limiter. And I like that it's in parallel, so you can do some compression here and then just mix it in. Now this is already starting to clip here. So there's a couple things I could do there. I could go and lower output. In this case, actually, I could lower the, let me group these together. So masters, I could lower the input to those plugins a little bit. Let's do that. Let's do like 2.5 dB. But I don't want to be clipping at all. I don't want to be clipping the plugins. I don't want to be clipping my meters yet. I want to have a clean. So the reason I can turn down the tracks because they're going to a submix. If this was just on the tracks, I'd have to either lower the clip gain or lower one of these plugins. So you could go to your output of the first plugin and just lower it a little bit. The gain staging is really, really important. And all these plugins turn it up a little bit. So you could, especially like this turns it up. So you could turn down these output gains on these. Some of these, for some reason we started to hide out like plugins clipping. I really liked when it was a little bit more noticeable when plugins were clipping. But this one tells you. Not even as much, but and the reason, if you look, this is already at -5 because it adds so much gain. That's not a fair comparison to me. So I'd bring this down -5. See how we're clipping a bunch here now. So let's clear these peaks. That's kind of nice. It's kind of nice, and we're not peaking now. I feel like it's doing a little too much for this mix, but again, this is all in parallel. You can set the thresholds here. You can set the ratios, attack and releases. This is a whole plugin worth spending time on. It's a really, really nice compression plugin. Well, actually, maybe I'll leave that and get rid of the Shadow Hills. Yeah, it was just too much compression to me. So we'll leave that for now again. And I would go back and turn all these off. It's like, okay, are we making it better? Let's see. And then this is just doing that. Okay, keeping going here. And then Soothe is a to call it a de-esser is doing disservice, but I'm having it just turn down frequencies from what? From 3K. So 3K and above, turning down. And this is your threshold amount. So if you have a syllabate, very harsh mix, this will save you and turn those frequencies down. It's really cool. It's very new. Well, it's not that new, but very advanced. It's new to me. It's really cool, good at taming harshness. And if you know me, I hate harsh mixes, so this will do a good job at that. I don't think we need it today though. And then the last thing is the limiter. And now I wouldn't turn on the limiter. I would again listen probably to the whole record, make sure every song is working from an EQ standpoint, from a compression standpoint, making sure they're all volume wise working. Remember, we changed the gains. So this one's still a little too loud. I mean, I would probably spend an enormous amount of time listening still and comparing each loudness part. So I'm just going to rush through this a little bit. It still just feels a little too loud. I just move at my deliberate pace. Our lives have become casinos, lights and sounds. See how it's not just based on waveform, it's about the content. Okay, so we're close. So we'll say we're close. But again, that's kind of the artistic part. I would probably spend, to do 4 songs like this, I would probably spend easily half a day, couple hours, tweaking and listening and figuring out what to do with that. All right, so we turn on the limiter here. And we need our meters back up. There is a meter here. It's really small, this RMS meter here. And I'm very interested in the LUFS, and again we're going to shoot for like -9, little louder maybe. We'll shoot for louder with this. In the ballpark. So again, I would listen to the whole record. I'd be listening to the whole song. I'm looking at how much is limiting here. This has a compressor on it as well. You can compress more, making sure my output is at a reasonable place. Read the manual for every single one of these plugins. You don't want to have anything on your master bus that you don't know incredibly well. And that's why you might even see me use plugins that are even older, or like, I'll use the RC comp all the time just because it's a compressor I know really well and I've been using it my entire career. But it's a really old Waves compressor. I'm not using it here, but just for reference, I use this every day because I know what it's going to do. And I don't want to be guessing knobs. I don't want to be guessing what things do on plugins or hardware even. And we'll talk about hardware too, because I do use hardware in mastering as well, but that's a whole other thing. Well, we'll take a little, because we probably won't, because we're almost done here. So if I were doing hardware, I could use an IO, come out of my hardware here, and I would go into, at home here I have the Chandler Germanium compressors. Let's go into it real quick. Let's see what it sounds like. Okay, let me tell you what's going on here. So I'm actually coming out. I have a Crane Song head here, and my IO is 1516 is set up to be digital AES. So it's coming out of the Crane Song head, being converted from digital to analog, and then going into the Chandler germanium compressors, and then going back into the Crane Song head and being converted from analog to digital, all just with this one insert here. Let's play that again. I will bypass the Chandlers and bring them in, the compressors, analog compressors. So, very subtle, and it's a little bit too much. I can A/B the whole conversion process here. To me, the digital actually sounds better right now, probably because we didn't start going through that whole other process. It's really hard to show with my setup right now. It's a whole nother conversion process, and you have to do that in real time. So I'll show that in another video, or hopefully in person soon. But just know that you can use analog hardware as well. So if you have a stereo compressor or a stereo EQ, you can use that as well. But you have to obviously recall all those settings, and you have to like what it's doing. So back to the digital version here. Oh, you might ask what I'm doing here. I'm just making the plugins inactive, because bypass doesn't always mean the audio isn't being turned off. To truly not have the audio go through the plugin, you want to make it inactive. But we don't even need these anymore. So I don't want to see bypassed plugins on a mastering session. You gotta get rid of them, because again, they could be messing with the sound a little bit. Okay, so we got our limiter here. Cool. Let's check out our reference. Yeah, we're getting in a ballpark. Once we're in a ballpark, I'll probably get rid of the reference. And actually, just for curiosity, let's see where we're at versus the Pro Master. So there's a weird little latency pause thing because it's actually going through the bus. If we weren't going through the bus, it wouldn't be as much of a pause, but it is what it is. We can live with that. So there you go. That's the pro version versus us just doing it here in the box. And I think, we're close. We're at a point where it makes sense. Like I said, I would spend the next however long tweaking, listening. But let's say we're done. Let's say we like it, because I want to show you the final step. Once you're happy, once you like the project, if you're using analog hardware, this is when you would print it in real time. But if you're using all plugins, you can use that. So let's make that gone. Okay, so we got all that. So now let's pretend we're 100% happy. 100% happy with the mix, with the masters, and we're ready to print it. And what I would do is select all the audio and the entire album and you're happy with all the transitions, you're happy with all that, grab all the audio. All right, so that's where it ends. And make sure you're happy with that being the ending. If you want it to end here, then you have to add that space. But I'm happy with it ending there. And don't be afraid to add time between songs too. If you want to insert time, just insert time and just do the fade. For instance, if I wanted this to happen, turn off that group. If I wanted this to have more space in between, that's fine. Just leave that space, and you'll print that dead air onto the CD, yeah, onto the final mix. As a matter of fact, let's leave it like that. So let's have this space. Let's pretend we like that much space. We got a big rest here. Cool. Let's say we like that. So good. We got the whole record here. And what I'll do now is I will not do that. I will bounce the whole record. I do not need an MP3 right now. I need a wave. Now I would usually be at 96. This was an old session I was just kind of referencing in. So if I were starting from scratch, I would do this at 96, but I'm in 44.1, so that's okay. And what I would call this Eager Sales Master Bounce. I'm going to put do not use because this is fake. But and I would put today's date, which is 4/22. Let's look. I don't even know what our days. Yeah. 4/22/20. So I would do that. I always put the date, and if I do a second bounce today, I'll add the time even too, because you're never done. You're always going to do revisions. I never put final mix because it's I just put the date, and then obviously the last date is the final. And once you're really, really done with the project, you can call it final. But I hate reading final 2, final 3, final 4. To me, it's just weird. And I want to import this after the bounce. That's important. So wave 24-bit for now, 44.1. All right, and you want to make sure this is going to the right bounce folder. That's fine. And then good. And offline's fine because we're not doing any analog processing. If we were doing analog processing, we would have to. I probably wouldn't even bounce it. I would probably just actually record it to a track. So here we go. We'll bounce the whole record right now. So it's 17 minutes-ish. So once this is done, we import the one long file of the whole EP, and then we cut that up. We label it, and then we export the couple different versions we'll need. And that's it. And then if there's a mistake, you can go back and re-export them again. Make changes, and then obviously just change the date and the time. But this would be another point in the process where we printed all these plugins. That's great, but you have to listen again and make sure that there's the final test of like everything's perfect. There's no clicks, there's no pops. So once it's done bouncing, if you didn't click import, you can import the audio, but I said import after bounce, so new track. And now I can take these ones and actually make those inactive as well. You don't have to make them inactive, you can just mute them, but I like having things just really organized. So, and the other thing you want to make sure is if this audio didn't start at 0, you want to make sure that it did. If it didn't, let's say it started there, you would want this audio to move there. But it did start at 0, so we'll go back to 0. Okay, so now we have 4 tracks here, really long. So, but remember we put these markers where we wanted the songs to be. And song 3 is here. Let's zoom in here, make sure. Yep, that's where song 3 is. Remember that's where it sounded best. And then song 4, did we move? Yeah, we did move song 4. And I'm going to start song 4 right where the audio starts. And again, you can tweak that. So what I would do now is just click on your markers here. You can scroll down to the track. And now we have 4 tracks. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And I would name them all. So we have this, and you have to number them too. So I would number that. That's the last elm. But what I would do is I would call that last elm master. And I would put the date. So 4/22/20. And that's it. And then I would go song 2. Song 2, 04/22/20. Song 3, 04/22/20. Oh, we didn't. Let's see. That's why this always takes a little long, and it's just as important as the songwriting part, as the mixing part. This is a whole, some people think it's kind of, I don't know, quick and easy, but you have to be really organized and really meticulous with this stuff. Okay, and then the date. All right, and then at this point, I'm going to listen again through the entire record, and I'm looking at volume. I'm making sure it's not clipping because there's no plugins anymore. Everything was printed. So there's no plugins. And if we did it right, we shouldn't see any overs. We shouldn't see any overs here, and we shouldn't see any clipping. All right. And we're going to listen through the whole record one last time, make sure we're happy with it. In a perfect world, I listen on different sets of speakers, different sets of headphones, go to the car, listen there, listen in other studios, listen on as many things you can, because that's actually part of this too, is you're mastering, you're getting this ready to be listened to on every format. So listen on earbuds, listen on your laptop speakers, listen on everything. So yeah, to master a record could take, a full day, if not more. But let's say you've quality controlled this, every click and pop. There's no extra weirdness from the export, and also you want to listen to make sure that the plugins didn't do anything funny, and all that stuff. So listen all again, and then if you're actually at the point where you're 100% happy, that's when you can export it. So you can grab these 4 mixes and shortcut Apple Shift K, and then you can export them. So I usually do 3 versions. I usually do let's see, go to the, you know what, I'll just put it here. Well, we are in Eager Sales. Old, because this is old. Here it is. Okay. So what I usually do, I'll make a new folder. I'll call that, masters, today's date, 22, 20. And I'm going to write do not use test because I don't want to get confused later about this. And then I will actually choose that folder again. I will make 3 folders in here. I'll call one MP3. I like to make an MP3 for my client because Pro Tools will make the highest MP3 it can make instead of just some crappy MP3 conversion. I'll do a WAV 16-bit. That's for CD. And then I'll do a WAV 24-bit. And I will export all 3 different versions into these folders. So I have today's masters, and then I have the 3 versions. And the 24-bit is for sites like Bandcamp. Some sites are requiring 24-bit now as well, so you want to give that. Most sites are still requiring 44.1 masters, though I know iTunes has a 96K, so check what you need for which website that you're going to upload to. I will, if I'm at 96, generally I'll give a 96 version as well, just to have like that high quality mastered version. So in this case, we're at 44.1, so I'll export the 24-bit here. I'll put it in the 24-bit folder. Export. All right, and then I'll export. Now these are I'm not bouncing. These are exports, so I'm exporting all the same quality as far as the compression. Because if I were to bounce this 3 times as a WAV 16-bit and MP3, the compression could be slightly different because it's it's based upon what's going into it each time. got 24-bit, got MP3, need 16-bit. So we'll export the 16-bit, wave 16-bit, choose, and we will choose masters, wave 16-bit, export. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so then you go here to your master folder we made, got your MP3s in order, 16-bit in order, 24-bit in order. If you see any other files, in here, you did it wrong. If there's something without the number or there's an extra little piece, that means there's somewhere you selected another piece of audio, and that's bad. So make sure you check that. And then once you have this, you could email, you could Dropbox this or Google Drive or whatever, and send this to your client. I'm going to delete this right away because I don't want to get confused later. Same thing with this session. So yeah, I hope that gave you some kind of insight. In my head, I'm just sitting here like, wow, it just makes it more confusing. Again, I go back to, if you're not 100% confident, even in everything I just did, hire somebody to do it. There's people that'll do it for less than you think. And the really great people are maybe not as expensive as you think either. And there's everything in between. There's everybody is looking for work, and there's really great quality stuff for cheap. So please look into that. Feel free to email me. I can recommend people. I'm happy to look at stuff as well. And there you go. I hope this was helpful.